Okay, so this is going to be my last lecture. So I'm a little bit behind my plan, but let me review what we have done. We have seen the last two lectures. So for this setting. So you have some set Y. In the example, that was a collection of geodesics. Actually, to translate one geodesic by a group action. And you have some functions or numbers, Y, and it only makes sense if P and this was in all those examples that was from by projections. A, and you have P here. Here, and we project this is IA and this is IAC, and we measure the distance here. That was, in the example, that was the number. Okay. And then they satisfy properties 1 to 4. 1 to 4, okay? Which I don't repeat here. And there are two constants for C and 0, whatever it is. From now on, I like to call those properties axioms. And I forget about how I get this set and how I got those numbers. Just you have a set, you have a function which satisfies those 4 properties. Okay, then now at the end of the last lecture, I made a graph from this setting. So now I fix a constant k, then form a graph. Which I write pk y. So P is for projection, whose vertex set is y. So now each point in y becomes a vertex in the graph I make, and I join now vertices. Okay, so vertices A and B in y, if there is nothing in between A and B, namely if there is no C in y such that the projection is large, bigger than the constant I fixed in the beginning. So I may say that if C satisfies this, then I say C is between A and B. Okay. So in other words, I join vertices A and B if there is nothing in between. Okay. So this is a construction. I got a graph, and the theorem is let me just abbreviate DBF. Suppose, okay, assume axioms 1 to 4, okay. And then if K is large enough, then this graph is a quasi-tree. Namely, quasi-isometric to a simplicial tree. So that's the sort of the main theorem of the talk or the paper we wrote and put in the archive maybe 1 year ago. Okay. So let me, the proof is not too easy. Maybe it takes like 5-10 pages. But I'd like to explain the key idea, how we prove this kind of theorem. So key idea is to verify the bottleneck property This is due to Jason Manning, which which characterize quasi-trees among graphs, which characterizes quasi-trees. Okay. So let me explain what bottleneck property is. So I finished writing and explain what it is. So this is the constant L. So my graph is verifies the bottleneck property for is a quasi-tree Q. Exists a constant L such that for any two vertices A and B in the graph Q, exists a path from A to B such that any path alpha from A to B has to pass the L neighborhood of any point C on gamma. Okay? So let me draw a picture for you. So you have any 2 points A and B in the graph. Then there is some path. Well, secretly this is going to be a geodesic or quasi-geodesic between A and B. So this is a path. Some special path we're going to choose to verify this property. And then if you draw any other path between A and B, this is not going to happen. So what we want to see is that if you take any point on the path and if you draw a ball of radius L, the constant L I fixed in the beginning, so this any path from A and B has to pass this layer. Okay. So and then if you verify this property, you show that your graph is a quasi-tree, and if it's a quasi-tree, of course it's going to satisfy this property. That's why it's a characterization. For example, well, on say Euclidean plane or even hyperbolic plane, this property is not true, right? You can always avoid a ball on the path. Okay. So this is a property we verified for our graph, and so at least let me describe this path gamma from A to B, so any given points on the graph. So we verify this property for the path gamma, which I mentioned yesterday, is going to be this path. Why? So that so remember this picture. So if you are given A and B, for example, in one example we are in hyperbolic plane, then given A and B, you look at the shortest segment between A and B, then for C to have a large projection for A and B is same as saying C come close to this segment and stay for a while. In this case, at least around K. And then remember, because of this bounded projection, there is a natural order for zone C like this. So I just put the order like C1, C2, C3, C4, and that's the path from A to B. And the point is that this is going to be a path in this complex and satisfies this bottleneck property due to money. So you have to work a little bit to verify that this bottleneck property, but
so I think that Ci and Ci plus 1 is connected by an edge in NIP.
What is the question?
So you were saying that it constitutes a path.
Yes.
That means the Ci and the Ci plus 1 is connected by an edge or something.
Yes.
So is it a property you can show with that?
Yes. Well, okay, that's a very good point. So that's where, in fact, I cheated a little bit. Okay, but let me show why. Okay, first of all, I claim C1 and C2 are connected. Why? Because there is no segment between C1 and C2. So it's impossible for any other to have a large projection. But the danger is maybe between C2 and C3 there is another one. Okay, so but how is it possible? So this is a segment between C2 and C3, and if there was another one which has a large projection in here, the large means bigger than K, then I should have included this C in advance for between A and B. Okay, that's why there is nothing between C2 and C3. Okay. Of course, this is not exactly right. This is true, this is correct for a tree, but for delta hyperbolic, you may worry that maybe there is no C for between C2 and C3, but maybe there is some C which has a projection only slightly smaller than K for C2 and C3, but suddenly maybe is it the other way around? You know what I'm going to say. So so there is something to argue, but that's the argument. Okay, so what we will say is right. Okay, there is nothing between C2 and C3. It's joined in the graph. Okay. So now I got a quasi-tree, but I would like to see the group action. But the point is that in the examples, there was G acting on this set Y, preserving this projection. Namely, if you apply G to everything, then it doesn't change. Therefore, actually G acts on this quasi-tree by isometries. Because for the construction, I'm just using the information from this DABC, which is preserved by G, therefore G preserves the structure of PK. Okay, so if you like to put in the most in a general way, I say if I have a collection of collection of something y and a function dA, which is preserved by a group, then I have a quasi-tree and group action on that. That's the most general statement. Okay. Let me give you one example of quasi-tree, because we have already seen that. One example is paragraph is a quasi-tree. Remember, this paragraph is it's not trivial, but you can show them. Okay, so if you apply this theorem to those standard examples, you get the group action on quasi-trees. So so maybe there are too many theorems. The following groups have actions on quasi-trees with at least one hyperbolic and WPG elements. Okay, but if you are careful when you are listening to my talk at the very end of the last talk, you notice that in those standard examples, I have a hyperbolic isometry, an axis, and then also y is the translate of the axis. Okay? But now each translate becomes a point in the quasi-tree. Therefore, if you look at the group action on that quasi-tree, the element G I started with fix the vertex for gamma. Therefore, the element I started with, which was hyperbolic, is no more hyperbolic, it's elliptic, it fixed a point. Okay, so when I said that I have a group action on quasi-tree with hyperbolic and WPD elements, I have to do a little fussing. And in fact, if I do it properly, I can modify the quasi-tree so that the element I started with is actually hyperbolic and WPD on this modified quasi-tree. But I'm not going to talk about that issue. So one, infinite one hyperbolic groups. In this case, you just use a group action on its Cayley graph, and then just take any element of infinite order, then it's hyperbolic on the Cayley graph, and you run the machinery. So infinite order element. Then you get many action and many quasi-trees. Two, I say no, virtually Armenian mapping class group of the surface. In this case, I use action the mapping class group on the curve complex, and I choose, for example, I choose Sudanosov, which is hyperbolic on the curve complex, which satisfies WPD. Therefore, I can run the argument. The third example, you can continue for a long time, but the third example is that is out of Fn, which is the outer automorphism group of the free group. So in this talk, maybe this is the last one for my lecture, and I'm going to mention some little bit advanced stuff. So maybe I just mention some terms or ideas without making a precise definition. So this is out of Fn, this is out of automorphism of a free group. This is auto divided by inner, and N is at least 2, otherwise it's a little bit too trivial. So in this case, it's similar, sort of similar to mapping class group, and there is something similar to, well, actually this is not finding a space of the surface. So there are at least 2 ways for you to apply our theorem for out of Fn. One is, so out of Fn acts on so-called outer space of Fn, and which is not delta hyperbolic. So therefore it doesn't exactly fit the setting, the standard setting I have been talking about, but for just say terms, fully irreducible elements. So fully irreducible element is analogy to pseudonymous of element in the mapping class group. This is analogous. This is similar, analogous to pseudonymous of element in the mapping class group. Element has an axis in the outer space which has a bounded projection property. This is due to Kufio. Who was a student at Vestabina. So remember maybe the first lecture I was talking about bounded projection from one geodesic to another. There is some fixed constant so that either 2 geodesics are parallel or projection from one to another is at most L. That's I mentioned like bounded projection property, and that's the property we really need to verify those axioms 1 to 4. So it doesn't matter if your space is hyperbolic or not. I was using the hyperbolicity to verify this bounded projection property using WPD. But for some reason, if you have a bounded projection property, you just run the argument. Okay. So that's what Kufi did. And the more recent technology, like very new technology, is that Vestabina and Feng recently found a complex which is very similar to the Karp complex, which is delta hyperbolic, and out of Fn acts, and any fully irreducible element is hyperbolic. So another modern technology is there is a 3-factor complex due to Vestabina and Feng, which is delta hyperbolic, and any fully irreducible element is a hyperbolic isometry, and the WPD. So this setting is really similar or same as this kind of setting. Therefore, we can apply the machinery. So in any case, in that case, we have at the end we have an action about Fn on the quasi-tree with not only at least one, but actually in fact many hyperbolic and WPD elements. Okay, so so the rest of the talk, I like to tell you how we use this theorem or what we can show using this theorem. I'm trying to mention maybe 3 or 4, depending on the time. Not all of them are new. It gives another proof of the known theorem, but they sort of unified approach using hyperbolistic. Okay, but in fact, the motivation for us to develop this theory was to prove the following theorem, which I'm not going to say much about. So mapping class group, the surface has finite asymptotic dimension. So that's the theorem for some reason we wanted to prove, and eventually we did this construction. So it's still far from this, but I like to find out, as I said, for example, for mapping class group, you have more than one action on many quasi-trees, each of which is not proper at all, only WPD for some element, but you have so many that you can hope that if you look at 10 of them in direct action, maybe the action becomes more proper. So that's the idea behind the proof of this kind of theorem, but I'm not going to say more about the argument for this theorem because it will be too much. Okay, so let me talk about the first application. It's just another proof of another known theorem. It's about the superrigidity. So let me mention a theorem by Maser, and then also some last part was finished by Maser. Says if gamma is a lattice, well, this is more general, but to be concrete, let's say this is a lattice in SLNR, and not with 3 in higher rank, then this gamma is not the subgroup of mapping class group. Okay, so let me prove this. Well, I warn you in advance that it's not exactly, by now it's not exactly the application of action on quasi-tree. It's more like what is essential is WPD. But let me show how we can prove. The original argument by Kaimanovich-Maser was so Kaimanovich-Maser used a Poisson boundary. To be more precise, they computed the Poisson boundary of mapping class group, and then on the other hand, previously, Krusenberg computed the Poisson boundary of the lattice in the Lie group, and they compare and say it's impossible for gamma to be a subgroup. Okay. By the way, so this conclusion could be I can make it more stronger. Namely, if you have a homomorphism from gamma to mapping class group, then actually the image is finite, but just using some standard fact about the higher lattice. But so I think this is good enough. So in this talk, I just try to say that this is not a subgroup. And Kaimanovich-Maser use Poisson boundary. But there is another proof I found with Veselina. Using bounded cohomology. Again, using actually the hyperbolic geometry and curve complex, we computed the bounded cohomology of all subgroups of mapping class group. On the other hand, for higher lattice, Borgo and Monod computed bounded cohomology for gamma. Actually, they show that it vanishes, and on the other hand, we show that typically it doesn't vanish. Therefore, it's impossible for gamma to be a subgroup mapping class group. That was another proof. But today I'd like to show another proof which, in fact, very similar to the second one, although it looks very different. So there's another proof I'd like to show you, which fits this lecture better. So for that, I need to use a theorem, the recent theorem by Gamani, Girardello, and Olsin. Says if you have a delta space, a group acting on that by isometry with as usual, at least one element, hyperbolic, and WPD. Okay. The conclusion is that for any n sufficiently large, if you look at the normal closure of G to the n, then it becomes free. So this is a normal subgroup is free. So this is the theorem. I'd like to mention that this is a generalization of a theorem Gromov found for hyperbolic groups. So the remark is that for G hyperbolic groups, this is known by Gromov. The point is that in the argument they notice that WPD is enough. By the way, so this is the argument Gromov used to show, or maybe not only Gromov but Olshansky used to show that there is an infinite bound side group. So let's go to the quotient. And anyway, so that was known maybe 20 years ago, but very recently Damani Girardello also managed to show that this hyperbolic element WPD is enough to verify.
What did you write below G there? WH? Right before small g on the left.
Right before.
Small
sorry, with.
Wait.
Sorry.
I thought it's saying more type of group.
Yeah. Okay. So I mentioned one theorem, the so-called Margulis normal subgroup theorem from Lattice. So in higher rank Lattice gamma, if you have a normal subgroup, is either finite or of finite index. Okay, so now we are ready to start the argument. So first, I claim that if gamma happens to be a subgroup of gamma, which is going to be a contradiction, then gamma does not contain any pseudo-anosons. Okay, so if you happen to have a gamma in a subgroup, it has to miss all pseudo-anosons. Okay, why? Otherwise, it's this Z gamma, which is a subgroup mapping class group, which is pseudo Anosov. But this is acting on Korb complex. Therefore, I apply this gamma negated osine to the action of gamma on the Korb complex. Okay. So that's, if there is a pseudo-Anosov, it's hyperbolic and WPD, because it was WPD even for mapping class group, so it is a WPD for a smaller subgroup. Apply gamma nuclear osine to G, then normal closure with E to the n in gamma. I take a normal closure in gamma, which is free. But it's a contradiction because, first of all, it's not finite. It's not finite index either, because if it was finite index, then gamma is going to be virtually free, which is not true because it's a lattice. Okay. So it's impossible. Contradicting this normal subgroup theorem. Okay. Therefore, it has to miss all pseudo-Anosov elements. Then now you apply a classification of subgroups of mapping class group, which was known before by this is, I don't know, due to Makasi, Papadopoulos, Thurston, Wilson, like that. Okay. So apply classification of subgroups in mapping class group, then conclude that actually gamma is a reduced subgroup. Well, I keep changing S or sigma. Namely, gamma is a subgroup or mapping class group of subsurface, which is strictly smaller than sigma. You may have to pass through the finite index subgroup. Anyway, so this is really a subgroup, a subsurface. Proper subsurface? Well, now you just induct. Okay? You just run the same argument, eventually you get a contradiction. So these subs get smaller and smaller. So you just induct. So that's the end. Okay. So the variation of this theorem or proof is about out of Fn, which was more difficult, but rather recently done by Bryson and Wade, who said again the same lattice. Lattice is not the subgroup of out of Fn. Okay, proof. We just follow the same line. Okay? Because remember, well, by now, maybe I just use this three-factor complex by Bestevino-Fein, but actually this proof was before Bestevino-Fein three-factor complex. And that time they were using the action of outer space, then this Kufi theorem for bounded projection. So this is bounded projection. You get the action of out of Fn on some quasi-tree with sorry. So I have to be more precise. Okay, so maybe so the original argument Bryson and Wade used is was depending on the action of outer space out of Fn of outer space, but that's a little bit more difficult to explain. So let me now use this three-factor complex, FF over Fn. Complex, so you do best spin of Fn, this is the hyperbolic, and any fully irreducible element is hyperbolic and WPD. Okay? Exactly the same setting as action of mapping class group on curve complex where any pseudo-Anosov is hyperbolic and WPD. Okay. Now assume gamma is subgroup of out of N, and the claim is that gamma does not contain any fully irreducible element. The argument is exactly the same. If it did, then just apply DZO and get a contradiction. Therefore, it has to miss all fully irreducible element. But now the difficult part is there is no nice classification of subgroups about Fn is known. So it would be nice if I can say, therefore, in fact, gamma is subgroup of out of Fn minus 1. Okay? That's best. Then I can just induct and eventually get a contradiction. But this is not true. Okay? So you have to do some work. So that's what Bryson Ray did. Okay, so I like to mention this as a pseudo-Anosov element is typical in mapping class group. This fully irreducible element is typical in out of Fn. So if it has to miss all of them, it's likely that it's not going to happen. But you have to argue. So Bryson and Wade managed to finish the argument without proving nice classification theorem for subgroups of mapping class out of Fn. Okay. All right. So that's sort of one application I wanted to mention. So another application is about distortion of the element in mapping class group. There is a theorem by Topology, who said then twist is not distorted. Namely, if you look at the infinite cyclic subgroup generated by the then twist, the word distance or metric word norm on Gn was linearly on M. It's like a hyperbolic element in the action on hyperbolic space. For other elements than the twist, it's much easier to show or see that it's not distorted, but then twist was the last one, which was not easy. Okay. So the proof is algebraic, and so I like to explain a little bit more geometric argument using our technology. So the difficulty is that the twist G is not hyperbolic isometry on the curve complex. It is not hyperbolic on triangular space. It's not hyperbolic on Bailey-Peterson space either. If it was hyperbolic on one of them, then hyperbolicity as isometry easily shows that your element is not distorted, because if something grows linearly, then log metric has to grow linearly too. That's easy. So you really need to find some space on which mapping class group acts and your Dehn twist. The given one Dehn, each given Dehn twist is hyperbolic on that. Okay, but if we just apply, I mean, okay, we anyway apply our machinery, but we don't. We have to modify it because so far in the mapping class group we can only deal with pseudo-loss of elements. If I just apply machinery to the action of mapping class on the curve complex, then I get action on the quasi-tree, but on that, of course, the twist is elliptic. Okay? Well, actually, not of course, but anyway. Okay, so so we have to do something, but here is the theorem. So there exists some particular subgroup of finite index such that for any given element G, if gamma, in particular Dehn twist, if your Dehn twist is not in gamma, you just take some high power, because this is a finite index, eventually it becomes in gamma. So, and if I'm talking about distortion, it's okay for me to pass to the finite index subgroup. So let's assume that, for example, my Dehn twist is in gamma. So any element G in gamma which is non-trivial, in particular Dehn twist, there exists a quasi-tree, and the gamma action on that such that G is hyperbolic. But in this case, I don't claim if the action is WPD. For pseudo-loss I can always show that the action is WPD, but for example, for Dehn twist, it is not WPD. Okay, so this is a theorem, and this implies this theorem. Okay, because I like to emphasize that the quasi-tree depends on the element I get in the beginning, but if whenever you give me an element, I can produce an action on some quasi-tree where this given element is hyperbolic. It shows that my element grows linearly. Okay.
So could you tell me what's gamma?
I can't tell it in a few words. It's a concrete subgroup. What we need is that if we wanted to use subsurface projection, maybe I just get into a little bit the proof. Oh, maybe I try to answer a question explaining a little additional property. So moreover, if genus is even, positive, so say 4, and gamma is as this central as that. And if G is then twist along gamma, then actually mapping class group acts on this quasi-trees such that G is hyperbolic. Okay? This is a sort of additional property we get if the number of genus is even, and then this is just something very special. Okay? So the point is that we don't have to go to this, pass through this particular finite unit subgroup. So let me explain what this gamma does and why we don't need gamma for this particular case. Okay. What's special about even number genus and this central simple closed curve is that, so in this case, for any element in mapping class group, either a gamma is gamma or a gamma intersect gamma. Okay, if you apply A, then it's impossible for a gamma to be like this, right? Because it's just impossible because it's a homer. So it's either it's exactly the same, or because it's exactly dividing it into half. And you might, I don't know if it's convincing or not, but you might notice that this looks similar sort of dichotomy for bounded projection. Either they are parallel or something. So this is a property we use to form the set Y and those numbers like this and apply our machinery. But the point is that in the general case, this claim is not true. It may happen that if you take so this is not true. In general. But what this gamma does is that as long as your element A is in gamma, then this is true. Whenever you have a curve, if you hit by element in gamma, then either it has to intersect or the same. Okay, then we can run a machinery. So that's a difference. Okay. So at the end, I'd like to mention one application of this little additional part. So here's a question. This is I would say it's a crazy question, but is any what hyperbolic group K0 group? K0 group means it acts on a K0 space, property and co-compactly. Actually, I was hoping that Mike is going to define K0 space before me. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But since I only have 5 minutes, I can't define that either. So anyway, this is a question which is open. Is any hyperbolic group K0 group? This is a crazy question. As crazy as asking, is any hyperbolic group residually finite? Okay. People doubt it, but we can't prove or disprove it. All right. Since this is difficult, So maybe you try to make it easier. Does the modification, does a Ricks complex of a hyperbolic group G, or to be more precise, K graph of G, become cat 0? So Ricks complex is associated with some to each constant G, namely you join, so L is a constant, so you have a K graph, so you decide to join any 2 points, 2 vertices whose length is at most L, then make a flat complex. For this, join X and Y if the length is most L, and make the flat complex. Then, for some reason, I can't explain very well, but you may hope that this construction eventually give a K0 complex on which G of course acts, and since that you have started with the action which is co-compact, still you get a co-compact proper action. Okay. Still this is too difficult. So people ask, does a Ricks complex of any hyperbolic graph become cat 0? This is question 2. Become cat 0. Okay. This is a stronger claim, so you have more chance to disprove. And for this last one, we managed to answer. So the answer is no. So let me show how we did it. Okay, so we know that in this particular case, mapping class group is acting on some quasi-tree, so that this one then twist is hyperbolic. Okay. So applied machinery. The theorem. Sorry, so we already applied the theorem. The point is this is a quasi-tree, therefore in particular it's a delta hyperbolic. So mapping class group acting on Q, which is a quasi-tree. My then twist is hyperbolic on Q. My then twist G. One particular then twist, which is this. Okay. So take Ricks complex. So you get action mapping class group on Ricks complex with respect to Q, L of Q. And well, my G was hyperbolic on Q, or Ricks complex is still hyperbolic. Actually, this Ricks complex and the Qi started with QI to each other, so G is hyperbolic. Okay, now I assume that that this is K0. Okay, for sufficiently large L. But then there's a theorem by Bryson. If mapping class group acts on a K0 space by hyperbolic or elliptic isometries, then all then twist are elliptic. You can just look at the centralizer and then twist and get a contradiction. Okay. But here The reaction I started with is on a quasi-tree, and you can prove that on a quasi-tree, each element is either hyperbolic or elliptic. It's exercise, and if you go to the Rives complex, this type of isometry doesn't change. Therefore, this action is by either hyperbolic or elliptic, element-wise. Therefore, we can apply Brazil's theorem, and then he says that twist has to be elliptic, but it's hyperbolic, so it's a contradiction. And so we, by accident, we managed to answer the last question. Okay, so I guess I stop here. I thank you very much for the patience.